Hello, this is Chajuan Jackson with Cuddlist. I'm at Heart Hugs Cuddling Loft in downtown Wichita. Cuddlist is actually helping to celebrate Black History Month.
Woo!
Yes, and I have here with me live Allysa Hupko. She's a clinical therapist, and we're just going to get a chance to get to know her a little bit better and talk about what it's like being African American and being in this field.
Yes.
So, Allysa, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I'm a licensed mastered social worker here in the city of Wichita, Kansas, which simply means I still have clinical supervision to oversee my private practice. I've been in private practice for 2 years. And the name of my private practice is LifeQuest Counseling Solutions.
LifeQuest. I like that. And how did you come up with the name LifeQuest?
Well, I really feel like one of our mottos that we have that we kind of go by is that we're helping people to navigate life. And we really believe that each person has what they need on the inside of them to be successful, but oftentimes they're not aware of that. So I look at myself more of as a facilitator to help them explore their own inner strengths to bring them to a place where they can use that as tools to do what they need to do to get through life's journey.
Okay. So, you know what? That actually brings us into some things that are really important that I want to cover today, with it being Black History Month. Tell me, first of all, what does Black History Month mean to you?
Well, I'm not sure if any of you guys got an opportunity to see the movie Harriet, but for me...
Are you speaking of Harriet Tubman?
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to see that yet, but I've been wanting to see it.
I'm telling you, it's a go-to-see. But for me, it's just kind of looking and understanding that we didn't get where we're at on our own. There were people that went before us that made groundbreaking, I lost my train of thought, but groundbreaking things to help pave the way for people to be able to be where they're sitting today.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm a product of everyone that's gone before me. And it also, at this point in my life, I've kind of moved out of being a young adult to being a more mature adult. It just kind of really shines the light on the fact that I've got to create opportunities and spaces and pave ways for those that are coming behind me.
Oh, I love that. And bring each other up.
Yes,
All
definitely.
right.
Definitely.
I definitely think in the African American community we need to do a lot more of that.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
Well, tell me, in terms of African Americans in therapy, with you being a clinical therapist,
Yes.
tell me, what do you think about African Americans in terms of them seeking therapy? Are they apt to do that? Are they, apprehensive?
Right.
What are your feelings on that? And like your clients, what type of clients do you see, your demographic?
Wonderful. I personally feel that because we've had such a hard beginning, meaning African Americans, we've had lots of things that we've had to overcome in this country, and because of that, we learn to become very self-reliant or very dependent on things. I would say the church is huge.
Yes.
It was a very huge component and still is to this day. So we have this idea that being self-reliant and or relying on God is the only way.
Right.
And while that for the season where it needed to be was there, I think as we move on down through generationally, there definitely is this place where we need to incorporate holistic care across the board. And so it has been difficult as a practitioner. I've been in practice for 3 years now, and unfortunately my demographics are probably I would say less than 10% African American.
Wow.
The majority is obviously Hispanic and or Caucasian.
Okay.
I have some Asian families recently, and as I'm even scanning and thinking of who I have now as a part of my client roster, I don't believe I have any African American clients right now. So,
Wow.
definitely an issue. Definitely an issue.
And why do you think that is, Allysa?
I think there's a lot of negative stigmatism attached to it. When you go to a therapist, you're no longer relying on God. You're no longer relying on your own ability to do whatever you need to do. I just think there's a lot of negative stereotypes surrounding it.
So do you think with that negativity that it's like kind of seen as a weakness?
I think it's a weakness. It's also being vulnerable.
Okay.
To being involved with other people and having people be involved with you. There's definitely some trust issues.
Okay.
Where that's concerned. And unfortunately, when you look at some of the instances in this country in the past, the medical field wasn't always, the most welcoming to African Americans. What comes off of my mind at the top is like the
Tuskegee Airmen?
Yeah,
yes.
Things like that.
Yes.
So you have instances where medical organizations really weren't working for people of color.
Right.
They were really systematically and strategically working against and harming. So there's lots of mistrust between the African American community and the medical community, just normally
right
speaking.
Just,
right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I would love to see, I consider myself a bridge. I wear two hats. I'm also a licensed and ordained minister here in the city. So I work a lot in the church with leaders and pastors and things like that. I consider myself to be a bridge between the mental health community and the churches. For people to understand it's okay. It's okay, first of all, to say that there's an issue here that we need to kind of explore a little bit deeper.
Right.
I also think it's a lack of education because sometimes we think, let me put myself in this.
Right.
We think that because we're going through stuff that we just got to get through it. Part of that self-reliance piece, right? We just got to get through it. We just got to trug through it. We're going to get through it. It's going to be better. Right. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
However, when you've been dealing with stuff for extended periods of time and it's not getting better.
Right.
That's when we need to, be okay with stepping outside of what we've already created as our safe place.
Okay.
And saying, okay, is this okay? Is this not okay?
So with you being a minister too and wearing the two hats with clinical therapy, you have the scientific part and then you have that trusting and believing part.
Right.
I know earlier you said that some people just say, pray about it. But I'm sure you've seen that where you need to go to that next step to get therapy.
Right.
What do you think is that, what would help a person to be able to see or for them to know that it's okay, to that encouragement for them to go seek actual therapist?
Right. I really think it's important that churches and social service agencies and things like that, they need to be intentional about looking at how they service the African American community.
Okay.
There's a level of cultural competency that I just see a lack of across the board.
Okay.
A lot of times African Americans are viewed to be difficult, angry, all these different kind of connotations, and I think that creates barriers for people to truly just be intentional in their efforts at including that particular population.
Okay.
I went to a leadership conference this past year and it was just amazing how this was put to me. We're in this season where we're dealing with diversity and inclusion and all these different things. And one of the speakers said, diversity is where you invite people that are different than you to come to the party. Inclusion is where you ask them to dance with you.
Oh, wow.
Blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because being the minority in many different arenas, I've experienced this myself. You may invite me to the party because I'm different and you want to be diversified.
Right.
But do you ask me to dance?
Ask to dance.
And this is so important when you're dealing with people that are different.
Right.
Because asking them to dance means I'm going to get in your space, you're going to get in mine.
Right. Together. You're linking up.
Right.
Not just you just here.
Right.
Right.
There's a level of intimacy. There's an exchange of relationship.
Okay.
There's vulnerability. All of these things that are needed in order for you to truly create safe places for people to be,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
And I know people in general, they have different giftings and different skills, and every culture has its beauty treasure that it brings to the table.
Right.
But I know, being a part of the African American community, we are extremely intuitive.
Yes.
We are extremely aware of what's going on beyond even what you're presenting.
Is that what we call woke?
I think so. Yeah.
Have y'all heard woke? That's what you call woke.
So we're reading you from the moment you present yourself.
Right.
And we're looking beyond what you're presenting, and we're looking to see, are you a safe place?
Okay.
And how we judge that is how you're willing to be inclusive.
That's right.
And so when we have organizations that are saying, we want to be diverse, we wanted, okay, are your leaders diverse?
Right. And you have like different colleges, I know now, they have a diversity department and different, organizations. They'll have that too, where you have specific people that are trying to be all inclusive. But like you said, you may be inviting me to the party, but you're not asking me to dance. That's a whole nother level.
It's a whole nother level.
Inclusion.
Right.
Okay.
It is inclusion.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. And so these things, when we're dealing with that sensitivity, cultural competency, diversity, and inclusion, we need to really, and that happens by inviting people that look different than you into your management spheres.
Right.
They need to be visible in all arenas.
Right. Not just at certain levels, and then you see nobody that looks like you there in that seat.
That doesn't create, I don't feel
no
like that's authentic.
Right.
Right. And then I wonder if I can trust you. So, yeah.
So when you talk about safe place, that right there connects, especially with what we do, being professional cuddlers. In that field, what we say is that we like to create a safe place for our clients to come to, an environment where they're welcomed and where they're accepted no matter where they are in life.
Right.
With the type of clinical therapy that you do, especially with, even speaking with, African American community, with you having hardly anyone right now that's African American. I know you said maybe previously you've had like less than 10%. How can you make it, or what steps are you doing to make it better for African Americans to feel more like it's a safe place?
Right. One of the things here recently, I've worked with my manager, my marketing lady, and she's really helped me to kind of think out of the box in terms of how I market the African American community. I have utilized, it's something that's called a chat. You can do a free chat with me, it's called a life chat, where if they're interested in whether or not maybe they need to seek out professional help,
right,
I have an opportunity to talk with them, and they can tell me a little bit about what they're going through,
right,
and I can share with them whether or not that's a life circumstance that you're going to kind of navigate through, or that's a little bit more on the side of you probably need to inquire about having a little bit more support with that therapeutically.
Okay.
So creating these avenues where conversations can take place in a non-threatening way, where we don't have to language is very important. Language is very important in any arena.
Please explain what you mean by language, Allysa.
Because when people think I'm going to go see a therapist, immediately they think the negative part of that. I'm crazy. I hear that a lot.
Okay.
And so I've been strategic in saying, there are all types of doctors. I consider myself to be a talking doctor. And immediately, it's like, okay, a talking doctor's not bad. I can kind of deal with that.
Right.
Instead of saying I'm doing a consultation where I'm assessing you, let's have a live chat.
Okay.
Let's have a life discussion to see where we're at, and to inquire whether or not what you're experiencing is within a normal life, or is this something a little more.
Now what you just said just now, I have to inquire about.
Yeah.
You said being crazy. I know, being African American myself, as you can see, uh, a lot of times there's a stigma behind, oh, I'm going to go see a therapist, what are they going to say to me? Am I going to be given a label?
Right, right,
Am I going to be put on medication? Are people going to be thinking I'm crazy, I'm nuts,
right,
that, I'm not making it, I can't endure life? I mean,
right.
a lot of people, African American people, I think
Everyone.
overall, yeah, everybody has that same type of feeling.
Right.
Is there a reason why you feel that African Americans feel that even more, to the point of where they're afraid to go that extra step to reach out to get the counseling, or to see maybe if there is something going on where they should be getting a diagnosis, or even getting to the point where they may finally go to see a therapist, a psychiatrist, where they should be prescribed maybe a medication,
Right.
and they maybe start taking it and then they stop,
Right.
or they never start. I
Right.
mean, is there a reasoning behind where you think African Americans aren't going that extra step?
I think there's several barriers.
Okay.
Okay. And barriers come in every culture, but particularly when you're dealing with some of the barriers of not having access to the proper places that can actually provide them with the resources and things that they need to be able to kind of walk that out. There's not a whole lot of ability to connect with the proper resources. That's
Okay.
one thing.
Okay.
Then you've got barriers of, economic scenarios that could be going on. So there may not be financial things available to support them with just basic life.
Okay.
And in one of our theories, if you don't have just basic stuff as fundamental, a fundamental part of what you're doing. So for instance, if you don't have proper shelter, you don't have proper food,
Right.
you don't have
Proper place to sleep.
yeah, I mean, mental health is probably not going to be the highest on your priority.
Right.
And so
you're just trying to live.
You're just trying to survive.
Right.
There's a surviving mentality that's attached to a lot of that. And that goes back to self-reliance.
Okay.
And so that can create a barrier as well for individuals. The other part of that, and I don't think we talk about this enough, is generationally, we've had so many instances of trauma as a culture.
Okay.
Not saying that any other culture has not experienced it, but we're highlighting African Americans at this moment.
We are.
And we have been very resilient as it relates to surviving, but when it comes to the concept of thriving,
Right.
I see that there tends to be a lot of hopelessness attached to that. And so that hopelessness will keep you in a state of survival mode.
Okay.
And we know as practitioners that we're not made to live in survival mode. When we do that, it's a breaking down of there's a fragmentation that comes into that in terms of your physical health, your emotional health, your psychological well-being.
Right.
It begins to break down. I truly believe we're living in a generation now where we're seeing the manifestation of the breakdown. And so you find more people of color that are more out front with saying, okay, I'm dealing with anxiety.
Right.
I don't know what it is, but something's not quite right.
Right. Something's not feeling good.
Right. I can't get out of the bed. Right.
Right.
Something's not okay with that. So I see them coming to the forefront now with us being in this place where we're talking about mental health. And I'm so grateful for outlets like what you're doing and others, because we're educating.
Yes.
We're educating ourselves, and because of that, people are starting to kind of be able to come to the place where they're saying, okay, I know something's not right. As far as taking it that step further, I just think we're going to have to continually explore how we're making these things accessible. Okay. I know in our city, there's a wealth of resource. Very few people that I've worked with that are dealing with the survival mentality even know how to tap in. They don't know how to tap in. They don't know where it's at. They don't understand their schools are major connecting points for resources.
And when you say school, high school, college,
all the way across the board.
Okay. Elementary schools,
all of it. Yes.
Okay.
Here in the city,
that's good to know.
Yes, Wichita ranks extremely high in terms of resources for children and families.
Wonderful.
People move from other states to come here because of the resource, and yet, when I'm working with certain populations, they don't even know what's accessible here. They don't know how to navigate through those systems to get those resources.
Okay.
So I've done more women's fairs and been available where I've done more things out in the community to get that information out so that people understand you're sitting in a place where what you need is here.
Right.
But you're going to need to tap in.
Exactly. They have to go seek it.
Yes.
If they need it and they know they need it.
Right. Right.
Okay. That's good. So tell me this, is there any scientific evidence that shows how important, I know we're talking a lot about therapy, but bringing it more close to where we are in what I do and talking about touch. Is there any scientific information that shows how important touch is for people?
There's a whole lot. When we get to dealing with neuroscience and attachment and development, as far as theories are, even in my field, it's huge. The importance of how touch stimulates different regions of the brain, which bring about the ability, it creates more adaptable human beings.
Okay.
When we talk about attachment and development, you're dealing with that from the moment the baby's in the womb until the baby's out.
Okay.
And being able to have those connections and the touch and all of that creates more well-rounded human beings that can adjust to normal life stressors, right?
Yes.
And so it is extremely important in the overall well-being period. The power of touch is so important. It allows the different chemicals and hormones in the body to regulate and to stimulate different areas in the brain to communicate properly and to regulate emotions and even some of your more abstract thinking that leads to more critical thinking and more mature functioning as adults. All of that is stimulated by touch.
Wow. Well, I know with you having the clinical side and then you have I want to say the Jesus side, the faith side.
Come on here.
I know there's a lot of healing in touch.
Yes.
A lot of times when you go to, especially the black churches, we like to lay, the pastors, the preachers, they like to lay hands on people, like when they come down for prayer and different things like that, putting oil, anointing heads.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about that, on the healing touch, even like in the church?
Yeah. It was so funny. I was in grad school, and this is when I figured out I had a love for neuroscience, because as I was looking through the materials, what I recognized is that the power of touch really was a little bit deeper than what I understood. I had seen people and been the recipient of, and even been the one that have been the giver of the laying of the hands of sorts. But literally, it does something to the entire nervous system.
Wow.
The laying of the hands can literally stimulate different areas in the brain to cause the body to fire off the proper chemicals that it needs to restore itself. Like I said, I'm a firm believer that everything that we need is literally on the inside of us. Some people have never been stimulated in certain ways. You'd be surprised when we do bring people to the altar and we do touch them, those that haven't even had healthy touch, and what that does to them chemically, So I do believe in it. There's science that backs it up, and then there's the spiritual aspect of it. And I believe they work in tandem. I don't think you can separate them.
Right.
They work together.
Well, with this whole Me Too movement being so big, and I know it's been a blessing, but on the other side of it, it has also been a thing of where people are afraid to touch people now.
Right.
Even when it's a touch of like just now, you just wanting to embrace someone, or someone's having a hard day, you want to touch their shoulder.
Right.
In a work environment, especially. it's become where people are afraid to do so because they're afraid of someone getting the wrong idea of what the intentions were behind the touch.
Right, right.
How do you feel in terms of, where we're at in the world with the Me Too movement, with you being a clinical therapist, and with you being, having that pastor hat on too, creating boundaries? Are people learning how to tell a person no, they don't want a certain something? How do you feel about that whole situation?
I am really concerned, and I will say, because we are a social media world now with technology. What we see is people creating their own worlds through technology, and they're not getting the proper stimulation with social human interaction.
Okay.
When there's already a predisposition for some things to go on, kind of that are sideways or not okay. Let me phrase that.
Right. It's not okay. You got to be able to say it's not okay.
It's not okay.
Right.
When there's already that predisposition for that, or maybe you're not the best socially, maybe you're socially awkward.
Right.
What I'm seeing is we're not understanding boundaries. I am seeing an influx of some of my clients that are children. In fact, I work with a lot of children in the school system.
Okay.
That don't understand boundaries. They don't understand social cues, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate.
Okay.
So it makes my field have to go back and teach what's fundamental, like what we learned in pre-K.
Right.
About your neighbors and your friends.
Personal space.
Sharing.
Right.
Bubbles. Boundaries.
Yes.
None of that stuff is being really, really highlighted in people's lives now, because we can create our own worlds on social media.
Wow.
And I don't have to know how to interact with you, and I don't really have to care about what your boundaries are. And I'm seeing an influx of that all the time in private practice, most definitely. And just the basic things. When you're at Walmart, you see a kid trying to grab everything. They don't understand. Our mamas used to let us know.
Yeah, don't be touching that before we go in here.
Before you go in the store.
Exactly.
Let me help you. Let me help you before you even get in here.
Right.
This is not your store.
Say hands don't need to be on everything.
Yeah.
Keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah.
And you're right.
So even in our parenting,
Yeah.
it's changed, because
Yes.
now you've got people that have been raised on their own
Yeah.
with the same type of mindset that you do it feels good. There are no boundaries. We don't respect boundaries. We don't even respect our differences, right?
Wow.
So we've got people running through Walmart, doing whatever they want to do,
Messing stuff up,
and
knocking
creating.
stuff over.
I've almost decided I don't know about shopping at Walmart, because I don't know. It gets to be very chaotic.
Right.
And that's what happens when we don't teach and we don't have foundational principles and convictions. Yeah.
With the boundaries. That makes a lot of sense. It does. So I know we've talked about all the different sides that in terms of what you have, and you're a pastor, you wear that hat. You're also a clinical therapist. But one hat that we have not talked about is being a mother and being a wife.
Yes.
Can you share with us a little bit more personal, Allysa, in terms of where touch has come in your life personally?
Yes.
And, where you maybe saw an entrance to where you knew and found out in your life where it was important to you.
Right.
And how it may have changed your life.
Right. Well, I came from a very abusive home life as a child. My father was physically abusive. My mother was very emotionally abusive. They did the best they knew how, but it was what it was. I was the oldest of two children that were born to their marriage, and there wasn't any touch that I can remember. And it didn't hit me until I got into undergrad, and we were taking classes on psychology and learning about sociology, and I think we did a family therapy course or something like that. When I was reading and educating myself, I recognized I didn't come up in an environment that was very nurturing. It wasn't safe. It was abusive, in terms of what I went through. And as a result of that, I really didn't have the proper stimulation as a child, so that when I became an adult, I was really a child, if that makes any sense. I remember in undergrad when I was in my early 20s, and I was thinking, man, I should have a grip on this, but there was a little girl inside of me that still needed to be nurtured, that still needed to be loved, that still needed to be validated. And so what happened is that right around my early 20s, I had an amazing family that came in, a woman that came in with her family, and they kind of just adopted me. Right. And I remember in this relationship in the first 2 years, my connection with touch was always somebody wants something. They're going to want something if they touch me. When she began to introduce touch to me in a platonic manner, it was very uncomfortable for me. But what I recognized was there were areas in me that began to unlock. I was always an introvert, always thought a lot, had a hard time articulating or having a voice, which is common with people that have experienced trauma and abuse.
Definitely.
They don't have a voice, but they tend to be innies, and they tend to be kind of really smart. And that was me.
Wow.
And I remember her looking at me one day as she kissed me on my cheek, and she said, "You have a lot in your head, and God's going to help you to get it out of your mouth." Because I found myself having a hard time maintaining employment, because I was always able to see, but I couldn't articulate. And so, you know how it is in a work environment. It's great that you can see.
Oh, yeah.
It's great that you can do.
Right.
But if you can't talk, then you're going to have a problem. Long story short, midway through this process, I remember the breaking moment where all the words started flooding. But this is with her working with me for about 2 years.
Wow. 2 years.
Touching me and kissing me. She would kiss me on my cheek. She would hold me.
So she like knew that, she felt that you had not gotten that.
I believe she was led by God. I truly do. She is my, I call her my mama.
Okay.
She's my mama, but she's also one of my overseers for ministry.
Okay. So she's still in your life.
She's still in my life to this day.
Wonderful.
And is the grandma to my grandchildren, because my parents were so fragmented they couldn't take on that role.
Okay.
But she has done that. And so, yeah, I remember when it broke, words started coming, and then it was like a shock to everyone around me because they remember me being so quiet. And just because people assume because you're quiet, you agree, but
you're
not
like, no.
always. So the words started coming, and people were like, whoa, 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 whoa. We weren't expecting that, you know?
Right.
And so from there, I had my first child. I was still in the middle of this process of healing, emotional healing. And I remember I had my child, but there wasn't a connection yet. I was still at the ending part of this place called becoming whole. And I remember when he was about 3 months old, I remember it broke.
Okay.
Like that disconnect broke. And I remember somebody handed him to me, and it was like, for the first moment, I recognized he's my baby, and that he deserves to be loved. He deserves to know that he's loved.
Right.
And
not just going through the motions of the mother duties.
Right.
Got you.
And it was where I don't know, the proper connection was restored. And to this day, I have 3 beautiful children. They are amazing young people, young adults, and they're very nurturing, and they give that in the relationships that they are connected to. They're very wise about who they choose.
Wonderful.
But yeah, they
That's
have
important.
that component. As a wife, it makes me understand that there is a component to being that safe place for your spouse. And a lot of times people get a lot of that confused and twisted up. But in any relationship, especially a marriage, you need to be a safe place for your partner.
Yes.
Wherever they're at in their journey called life, you've got to be a safe place, a transparent place. And so being okay with moving into that role as a wife, wherever my spouse is at, I can be a safe place.
Okay.
What does that mean? I'm going to be able to touch my spouse. I'm going to validate him. I'm going to speak words of life to him. I'm not enabling him.
Right.
Because that's not what that is about.
Right.
But being able to be that safe place and that place of transparency and to model that within the relationship, I think is vital.
Definitely. I love that. I know, bringing it closer to home, a lot of professional cuddlers, we see a lot of different clients that a lot of them are married, and a lot of them may not be getting that attention, the touch. And when I say touch, not a sexual touch,
Right.
a platonic touch
Right.
from their mate, because maybe their mate doesn't know how to deliver that. What is it that you think that, couples that may have been together for a long time, may be a hindrance with some couples not being able to ask for what it is that they want?
I think safety is huge. Especially when there's been trust issues or people are more apprehensive about being authentically who they are in the moment that they're in. When I say safe places, those are things you have to be intentional about creating. So one of the things about an intimate relationship is I love this. Intimacy is intimacy. So you're going to look at me and you're going to see me at my worst,
Right.
my best, and everything in between.
Yes.
And creating safe places means that I may see things that other people will not see.
Right.
But how am I going to handle that information? Am I going to blabble off to my girlfriends or my guy friends or my pastor or
all their
whomever?
business?
Yeah.
Right.
Can this person authentically be who they are with you in a safe manner, whether it's the worst part of them, the best part of them, or everything in between?
Okay.
And that is something we have to be intentional about. I can speak personally because my husband comes from a very traumatic background.
Okay.
Trauma was huge for him. Trusting people, trusting organizations, all those kinds of things has always been a struggle for him.
Okay.
What I decided to do early on in the marriage was to create a safe place that regardless of where he's at in his process called life, and unfortunately, he's okay with me saying this, he's been in a journey the last, 2 to 3 years. It hasn't been a pretty process.
Okay.
But for him to know that all of that is safe with me. I'm not going to tolerate things that are inappropriate. But when it comes to you being in a broken place, it's okay. You're in that season. You're not going to stay there.
Right.
And it's my job to build you, to be intentional. I'm very intentional about eye-to-eye contact.
We call that eye gazing.
Yes. Very intentional about eye contact. Very intentional about my words that I speak or don't speak.
Right. Yeah,
Very
that's important too.
Yes, very intentional about touching. Because I believe he was like me.
He didn't get the touch that he
did
needed
not
growing
get
up.
that.
Okay.
He did not get that. And so now I've noticed, when people start getting a little better because they'll start touching you back.
Right.
It's
It's not just you leading the touch anymore.
Right.
Okay.
And they'll, there are times
Right.
where we're in the car, he'll put his little hand down there and he'll hold my hand. There are times where so we know that it works.
I love that.
It works when we are intentional about that.
Wonderful.
So lots of modeling.
Okay.
And not feeling like you're mothering someone, or I think you have to be real careful with that, because sometimes people think, well, you're mothering. No.
You said that's not what's happening.
No. I'm modeling the way that the way touch looks like.
Right.
In a way that's non-sexual and or sexual. In a marriage, you can add that component. But yeah.
Okay. I know when we first met, we actually met at, there was like a woman's forum.
Yes.
And you're one of the speakers there. And I was encouraged to go up to her because of her wonderful personality, as you can see. And I was kind of drawn to her. And with her being a clinical therapist, I knew that, if we were to network with each other, that, there are certain clients, of course, with me being a Cuddlist practitioner, there are things I can't do. I'm not licensed to do that she is, and vice versa. I mean,
Right.
she's not allowed to touch people.
Right.
So working hand in hand is something that we can do in terms of referring people to each other. I know offhand there are like at least 3 people that actually really do need to see a therapist. Certain things I cannot do.
Right.
So tell me, with where we are and with you learning more about what I do, when you first heard about what I did, what did you think about it? And now that you've learned more from me and just being in the environment, even coming to Heart Hugs today,
Right.
How do you feel that a professional cuddler can help be an asset to a clinical therapist?
Man, they work in tandem. I think I'm always looking at holistically how people can become better, or to become balanced is another word
Balanced.
used a lot.
I like that.
Honestly, when I first heard what you did, I thought, man, I don't know what that is. I thought, I don't know what it is, but let me find out. I'm kind of an open type of a personality.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful way to be.
Coming and being connected to you, I understand the importance of having these partnerships, because like you said, there are things that I'm not able to do that you can do, and vice versa. And I think people need all of it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming out of trauma. I can't explain to you enough. Trauma just shuts down certain areas of the brain. It just doesn't, nothing's getting in, nothing's getting out.
Right.
If we can introduce the concept of touch, I believe some of these things that are going on neurologically with people, the brain will begin to refire in certain areas. And one amazing factor about our brain is that as long as you're alive, it has the capacity to renew, rebuild, restore, which is a lot of times we hear that, but we don't understand it's from the inside out.
And how that's supposed to be done.
Right. We don't know how to get there.
Okay.
And so having this partnership is a godsend, in the sense that I have several people I'm thinking off the top of my brain. If I can get them back in the office, I'm gonna send them to her, because they need that. We have women that are women and men that are extremely promiscuous, because either trauma at a young age will make you shut everything down, or they're going to go completely the opposite way.
Right.
You don't have, everything is who you want to be with. Promiscuity is just part of your name at that point.
Right.
And so understanding and going back and kind of inputting some of that stimulation that should have been there, that was platonic, and it didn't charge them nothing, in the sense that I'm not going to take your soul, and I'm not going to, curse you, and I'm not going to fondle you, and I'm not going to do these kinds of things to you. This is
inappropriate.
Right. This is a part of normal relationship and normal life. And so many of them have those gaps and holes where it's just not there.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
So I think, overall, just being here and talking with you today, hopefully our viewers will be able to get, more of a grasp on clinical therapy, also touch, how important it is, coming from a clinical therapist, her personal thoughts, different things that she's dealt with in her life, and just being an African American, some of the things that we have to deal with, why we may not want to seek therapy, the reasoning behind that, and overall, us knowing that there's nothing wrong with seeking therapy.
Right.
A lot of us need help.
Right.
It's not a show of weakness that we're needing to talk to someone about our problems. Actually, it's a sign of strength that you're able to be that person that knows that you're needing help, and it's time to have someone help you with it.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
No, I thank you for being here. Actually, can I give you a hug?
Yes,
okay.
Come on, girl.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
All right. This is Chajuan Jackson here at Heart Hugs Cuddling Loft, talking to Allysa Hupko, clinical therapist here in Wichita, Kansas. And y'all, we are in the Bible Belt. In case I didn't tell you that before, we are in the Bible Belt. So a lot of things that we do, we're in the center of the world, and a lot of times people don't grasp onto new things. So it's great that I had her come in today to talk to us about all the different topics that we covered. And I know that you must have gotten something great from it. And we'll talk to you again when we do the second interview for Black History Month. This is Chajuan and Allysa signing off.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.